USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online at USCHO.com. An in-depth look at this week's top college hockey matchup and a preview of the other big games.
Welcome to the Game of the Week podcast for Thursday, October 28th, 2021. I'm Ed Trefsker alongside Jim Connolly. This week's Game of the Week between Harvard and Dartmouth features two teams that are just raring to go.
And joining us now to talk about this week's Game of the Week, the head coach of Harvard University, and that is Ted Donato. And Ted, so many teams have been excited about getting fans back in the building this year. I assume you're happy to have hockey back in the building this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw something today that we're at somewhere around just about 600 days before since we've played our last game. So while it will be great to see fans at games, just to be playing the games themselves will certainly have a level of excitement.
What was the last year plus like? Those maybe it's most of those 600 days since the season was canceled right before the playoffs in 2020, and then going through knowing that there were no games for you to play last year, and then you're finally back. But take us through the whole progression, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it was really, I kind of feel like it was three stages. The first stage was, we were getting set to go play RPI in the playoffs. We had just advanced in the first round and we were on to the second round. And then, the pandemic hit. We were one of the first to back out because of the pandemic. And, but then everybody else followed. So, then the off season comes. And, at that time, everybody felt, hey, we'll be back in the fall. Everything will be back to normal. And, mass immunity, all that kind of, stuff that everybody was hoping for. And then the fall came and, we elected as the Ivy League to not participate. And we didn't have kids. We had just our freshman class at school in the first semester and just the seniors in the second semester. And that really, I would say, was the most difficult part. Just understanding that we weren't going to be able to go back to school. We weren't going to be able to be back together as a team. We had several guys that had made the, decision to come back for the senior year and forego their opportunity to turn to professional hockey. That decision got altered because we weren't playing. So we had, 3 seniors and 2 juniors that we lost. We also lost a couple guys in the recruiting front as well. A couple of really talented guys on top of it. So that was difficult. I then think it went to the stage of just trying to make sure, not only that we had a good perspective, because it was challenging to keep a, positive perspective, but really as coaches, just to try to be there for our players. I mean, it was, mentally it was a challenge, seeing other people around the country play, not being able to be at school, not being able to, play. I think we had a healthy perspective, but it didn't make it any less difficult. And so I think, we tried to stay in touch with guys. We had some guys that were able to go out to the USCHO and play junior hockey. We had some guys that, were lucky enough to have the World Juniors. So they had, a month of hockey there. And then we had some guys that decided to go down to, Tampa, just outside of Tampa, Florida, and, work out and train together and take classes together online, in a warm weather environment. So, that was a tough go, especially with everybody else playing. I have to say there were several coaches that I talked to throughout the year that were so frustrated with the starts. We can't practice today. We can't play this weekend. And then going all year, and some of them playing only, 10, 12 games, that they said they were jealous of our situation. But, I think then then came the third stage, which was, all right, let's cross our fingers and hope that, next year there's a return to normalcy. Let's get our house in order. I think we took the time off to reevaluate again. Hey, what can we do better? What can we watch during this time? What can we learn from this time off to return as good as we can? And, I'm just happy, most importantly, I think just happy for our players to be back at school, back with their friends, back also playing the sport they love. And so, this fall when we did start up on the ice, there was an excitement and an energy and a positive attitude that was really, really great to come to the rink every day and see the guys so excited to just appreciate something that they weren't able to have for quite some time.
The timing of all of this is kind of interesting when you think about also what went on with transfer rules and the 5th year of eligibility and all of those types of things that made rosters look a lot different. But I also look at the Ivies, maybe the most different of any of the rosters in the country, some of the Ivy League rosters. Do you feel as you look around the league and you're looking at Cornell and you're looking at Dartmouth and you're looking at Yale and Brown and Princeton that you're looking at teams that don't even look familiar to what they were 2 years ago?
I think that's, safe to say. I think there certainly were some teams that felt that they had positioned themselves to be really competitive. I know Cornell was really great when the pandemic hit. I think they were 1 or 2 in the country. I think, they had a really good team returning. We felt that we had a really great group of guys that were young for a couple of years that were, that we had a chance to be really, really good last year as well. And it's been a challenge. I really haven't seen many transfers throughout the Ivies. It's not really, an easy or a natural, situation. So in some ways we didn't deal with a lot of roster change from the transfer portal. However, the Ivy also has, rules about how many semesters you can be enrolled on campus, that kind of stuff. So, so some kids had to choose to either stay in school or stay out of school so that they could, keep their eligibility. While the NCAA was allowing them eligibility, it didn't mean the Ivy Leagues was allowing them that extra year of eligibility, on campus. So there were definitely some challenges there. For us, I feel like, obviously we lost a couple of recruits. We lost a couple of guys early. But for us, just the timing of it, we were kind of earlier than most. So we were already trying to work on, what was it going to look like when we get back and tried to get ahead of it in that regard. So for us, we don't have this, really large roster. If anything, we're actually a little bit lighter than we usually are, just purely by the numbers. And, and everybody's different. I know, some of the schools have, 5 years of players, including transfers. So, I think the disadvantage for us maybe is that, we have a freshman class and a sophomore class that hasn't worn the jersey and played in college hockey. And then you take, guys like Jack Drury and Jack Rathbone out of our senior class and, it presents a challenge. But, those things for us, I feel like are in our rearview mirror. I think our guys are really excited about the group we do have. And we're excited to go out and compete. And we think we can be a good team. We know there's some inexperience and that, it may take some time to, fully gel, and we have a lot to learn. But it's a confident group that is excited to come to the rink every day. And I think we can, accomplish some great things.
And Ted, you touched a little bit on the Ivies rule, and that's one of the strange things that a lot of people don't understand. The NCAA obviously said if you are a 5th-year senior, you can come back, but you are only basically allowed to be enrolled, if I understand it right, for academic semesters 8 times, 8 semesters. And a sport like football is kind of easy. You sit out your fall semester and then you make it up on another end academically. But hockey stretches across 2 semesters. It's the longest sport out there in the NCAA. Was that even more challenging to try to kind of navigate the Ivy League rules with the NCAA rules?
Yeah, it was a challenge because, as you say, in a lot of sports, you could, just take one semester off versus a whole year off. And obviously, and as it should be, Harvard is, first and foremost focused on the academic, part of the college equation. And so, it was, for some guys, they had to decide, whether they wanted to continue, with their schooling, knowing that they might lose, some potential for, eligibility playing wise in the Ivies. We for the most part, I think we had 3 players that decided to kind of sit the year out academically. Everybody else just continued along. And, it's a challenge to me. I mean, I think the Ivy League at its base level believes that, you're there to go to school first and foremost. And so they don't want people, on campus as a sport being their main attraction for being there. So, and I think that, it's something that, we're proud of and we stand by, but this has become a real delicate situation for everybody. And, when kids work as hard as they do to get to a certain level, both academically and athletically, it's posed a lot of challenges, not only for us, but all the way across the country. So, I think in some ways this whole, situation, the pandemic is really forced us all to have a healthy perspective and kind of appreciate things we do have. And, I think as we sit here today, I think we're just so excited looking forward and trying not to relive the frustration of what was in the rearview mirror. So, it's a really good group of guys, and we're really excited to represent the university and get back on the ice playing hockey.
Well, it's because 2 Ivies have had so long off that this is our game of the week this week. What has been the focus for you this week preparing to take on Dartmouth?
Well, I think we're just, at this point, really just trying to be focused on the task at hand. That's a Dartmouth team that's always tough at home with a new coaching staff that's young, that's coming off a scrimmage or exhibition win versus UMass last weekend. We did scrimmage them ourselves a couple weeks ago. So, it's I think for us as a player, you just get excited to play. As coaches, this is the time of year where you think, hey, what am I missing? What I forget? Did I put the 6-on-5 in? Did I put the 5-on-3 in? Did I make sure that, we're prepared for any situation that happens? But, I think mostly just trying to time it so that our guys feel great on the weekends. We're ready to go. We have, a little bit of a challenge in that we're playing at 8:00 on Friday and then coming back home after traveling from Dartmouth on Saturday night. So, just want to make sure that we're finding that right balance so that we can play our best 2 nights in a row.
Who are some players we should be watching for this season?
Well, I think Nick Abruzzese is a real go-to guy for us. He led our league in scoring a couple of years ago as a freshman. He's dynamic, makes others around him better. He can score, he can set up plays. He's, really a treat to watch. We also have Casey Dornbach, who, has been a real good player for us, in all assets of the game. Really great setup guy, passing the puck, and, has made a real difference on our power play. And I think Henry Thrun on the back line is a guy we feel that's had a tremendous freshman year for us and is ready to step up. We have a couple guys in Thrun and Farinacci that were members of a gold medal team last year for Team USA and the World Juniors. We also have guys like Farrell and Coronado and LaFerriere, that we feel, really have the opportunity to make an impact right away. So, I think we'll be able to get up and down the ice and play a really entertaining brand of hockey, and hopefully we find that right balance where we can defend to a level where gives us a chance to win hockey games every night. And I think in that, Mitch Gibson comes off a good freshman campaign, and we feel like we have we have talent in depth and all facets of the game. And now we just got to come together as a team and find a style of play that's successful. You
mentioned all the things that you've gone through in the past year. Is there a feeling that once you get out there on the ice and the game gets started, you can finally close the door on all that and move forward? I think so, at least to some point. I know for me, when that puck gets dropped on Friday night at Dartmouth, I'll feel a certain sense of excitement, but also a certain sense of relief that we've made it and we're actually back playing. But I do think that, by no means are we fully out of the woods. And, with, just looking at even the NHL that's, trying to do things at a really, really high level as far as testing and all that kind of stuff. And you still see guys, falling into the protocol and having to watch games. And so, for us, the other part of it is we didn't really, live through it, with boots on the ground last year, going through, negative tests and that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of unknown, as to what it might look like. But I can tell you, our guys are super excited to just finally get a game going and put that jersey on for some guys that, have waited 2 years now to start their college careers. So there's definitely some excitement around Cambridge.
A Friday night, 8 p.m., Harvard at Dartmouth, an Ivy League battle of two teams that are dying to get back to playing hockey. Ted Donato, thanks so much for your time today. And we always enjoy having you on. Good luck this season. Good luck getting back to hockey. It's nice to have you back.
Well, thanks, Jim. I love the podcast you guys do. And I'm excited to be back in the mix for college hockey.
That's Harvard head coach Ted Donato. More of the Game of the Week podcast coming up.
This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online.
Welcome back to the USCHO Game of the Week podcast. I'm Ed Trefsker alongside Jim Connolly. Boy, you could tell Ted Donato is excited to get on the ice. And I imagine both Harvard and Dartmouth are going to come out of the gates just flying out of excitement this Friday night.
Yeah, I would think so. This has been just too long of a break. There were teams that went through some issues with COVID last year and had a lot of stops and starts and cancellations to their season. So maybe these Ivy League schools didn't go through that. But, to not have played last year and to be able to come back and finally be in that position where you're actually going to step on the ice, the game counts, there's standings, there's referees, there's pucks, there's goals, there's everything that you need to enjoy a full night out on a Friday night. These two teams will be ready to go. I think this will be a fantastic matchup. And, I listening to Ted Donato, you don't realize exactly everything that programs went through until you hear, and, you ask him that first question about what was it like, and it's a pretty long answer because there was a lot that they went through as Ivy League schools, knowing that there was going to be no hockey last year and that there was no solution to that and there was no easy fix and that these players were going to have to wait a year. And a lot of things changed over that time. Rosters changed, guys left, guys delayed, guys, whatever it was that they had to do to figure out what was right for each player personally. It was difficult. And I think that what this Harvard team and the five other Ivies have gone through is significant.
Yeah, and I didn't really think about it until he was talking about it, that they had such a different experience. They kind of knew what was going on throughout the season. They didn't have the uncertainty and the ups and downs and could adapt and find ways to work around it. Somebody who has really had to wait for his first head coaching game is Reid Cashman at Dartmouth. He's a great hire. And what exactly is he going to bring to Dartmouth?
Well, it's very interesting because when Reid Cashman got the job, he didn't get to start right away. He had to actually wait a while to start even on campus because his team, the Washington Capitals at that time, were in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And he had to wait for that season to end. And you think that was your delay. Well, your real delay was ever getting to go out and coach. And when, Bob Gaudette announced his retirement and Reid was chosen as a replacement up at Dartmouth, what a great choice. This is a guy who in the college hockey world at Quinnipiac, both as a player and as a coach, had great success. I would expect, and it's something I said about Holy Cross, and I think it's something you can say about anything that, it's feeling like this is the Bill Belichick coaching tree. I don't know if it'll get as extensive with Rand Pecknold, but he's going to be around for a long time, and you're going to have a lot of assistant coaches that he's going to make better. And here you have, Reid Cashman, you have Bill Riga. These guys both are in a situation where they've learned from a guy who plays a very aggressive style of hockey. I would expect Dartmouth to try to personify that and be very aggressive on the forecheck, a tough team to play against. It's one of those things where you just feel like these are teams that know how to play the game right and get in your face. And that's very difficult to defend against. And people understand that coaches understand that when you play a team like Quinnipiac or what will now become Dartmouth, what will now become Holy Cross, you're playing against really tough competition because they tend to get a little bit more in your face. It's a heavy game. It's a heavy style. So that's what I expect from Dartmouth. It's going to take time, just like it is at Holy Cross. It's taking a little bit of time with Bill Riga, and personnel is a big part of it. I think that Reid having the extra season there, even though there wasn't anything on the ice, he's been able to spend some time looking at both the transfer portal and recruiting. And I'm sure he's brought in some of the players he wants to work with. So it won't just be, we've had a lot of first year head coaches in different situations this year. Jerry Keefe at Northeastern taking over a team that he was an assistant for a long time. You could say the same thing out at Western Michigan. Then you have Bill Riga that literally jumps into a team in the middle of the summer. Well, Reid Cashman somewhere in the middle, whereas he got to do some recruiting, but at the same time, it's still a pretty new team to him, and this will obviously be his first time behind the bench in Hanover.
And not an easy weekend for Harvard. It's not one of the games on our list, but I do want to mention they take on Bentley at home on Saturday. Bentley has Friday night off. Bentley's had some early success against Ohio State and Boston College. So that's one that I know that the Bentley Falcons have really circled on their calendar and could be a dangerous one for the Crimson after a game the night before and travel.
Yeah, well, you heard Ted mention it, 8:00 start, late start, which doesn't help you. Then you're getting done that game. You're probably back on the bus around 11:15 if there's no shootout, 11:30 if there is a shootout. You're adding potential factors that's going to be likely a post 1 a.m. arrival to then play the next day. So there will be there'll be a need for some good coaching on the Harvard side in both, not just the X's and O's, but just kind of relating to your players and where they are mentally, where they are physically, knowing what you have to do on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon to get this team ready to face a team that will be hungry again. We mentioned their wins over BC and Ohio State, Bentley, every time that they get to play these big teams, big name teams, I think they think of it as a Stanley Cup game. And I think that they're going to have a lot of energy coming into Saturday night.
UMass Lowell and number 19 Boston University have a home and home this weekend. BU has been a little bit up and down. UMass Lowell has been tested. What do you look for out of this matchup this weekend?
Lowell just hasn't had reps yet. They started out at Arizona State, got a win and a loss out there. Then they had an off weekend, then another off weekend because of LIU having some COVID issues. So Lowell didn't get to play a lot. And then I thought they played a good series last week against Michigan State. BU, on the other hand, there's just been so many ups and downs. And Friday nights have not been good to them. They had a loss to Sacred Heart at home. They had a loss to Merrimack at home. They bounced back with wins on the second night each time. But Friday nights have not been kind. And that can kind of be one of those things that you're sitting there saying, okay, is there an issue getting out of the gate? Is there an issue getting started on a weekend? And sometimes that can be a problem. I would think, this is a BU team that their season a year ago was ended by UMass Lowell. in a playoff game that I think most thought that BU would win. Before that game, and that game was played at Walter Brown, we can't forget that. But before that game, Lowell had not had a lot of road success against BU of late. I don't have the exact numbers around me, but it hadn't been good. This game is back in Agganis, so maybe that makes a difference. Maybe Agganis makes a little bit of difference for BU. And fans probably will give them a little bit more of a spark. But the reality is they're going to have to find a way, BU, to play better on Friday nights. They just don't seem to start the weekend well. Like I said, they ended very well. They bounced back against Sacred Heart. They bounced back last weekend against Merrimack. But I think they've got to find a way to just be a little bit more on top of the start of every weekend.
Well, let's look at the one series that pits a Western team against an Eastern team in our schedule. Number 13, Western Michigan. They moved up in the polls. They got a lot of attention after downing Michigan at Yost and then losing in overtime at home the next night in Kalamazoo. Colgate, however, I think they're being overlooked. They just missed the poll. They are able to score a lot of goals. They have a pretty high-flying, aggressive offense when they want to, and they have some good goaltending. I think this is going to be a terrific matchup between two teams that can be aggressive and really hunt for goals.
It certainly has the makeup of that. And you don't know what type of a game plays out. It could end up being a pretty good defensive series. You never know. But, Derek Schooley mentioned it on Monday in our podcast about, he thought Donnie Vaughn really took advantage of the fact that school played last year and that they kind of improved as a team. And I feel like I've watched this team over the last 4 years continually get a little bit better. And to the point that they're now, I think, are a pretty dangerous team that, as you said, and I agree, very overlooked. And there's reasons teams get overlooked. And one of them is that you weren't good for the last, 2-3 seasons. Maybe people weren't paying attention to them last season, but they had some real struggles in recent years. If they can bounce back and play a really good series against Western, you have to think that they're kind of headed in a good direction. But same thing for Western. They are obviously in a good direction. That win over Michigan was a great one. Almost pulled it out the next night, losing overtime. So the thought that, they're in a positive trajectory as well, I think that is going to play into this. I think this could be a really good matchup between these two teams.
Let's go out to the Big Ten. Number 14, Notre Dame will have a pair of games at number 7, Minnesota. I think the Fighting Irish may be a little lower in the polls than they're going to end up later in the season. Meanwhile, Minnesota has lost 3 of its last 4, including getting swept last weekend by Minnesota Duluth.
Listen, it's been a very tough schedule for Minnesota, so I don't want to try to paint them as a team that's way down. They've played some very tough opponents, but they've got to get the confidence of winning behind them. And Notre Dame, I think I agree with your assessment. I think that they might be a little bit better than people think they are. They were kind of the team I pointed out as the team that's maybe been most overlooked. But I guess it really depends on the type of game that is played. If this becomes a track meet, I think it favors Minnesota a little bit. This is a tighter game where Notre Dame can grab a lead and kind of play some of their style of hockey and make it a little tighter game, a heavy checking game. I think that it favors the Irish. But I think this is a really good early season test for both teams. But the team I'm really watching here is Notre Dame, because I think that I think they were picked 4th in the Big Ten. I feel like they should be maybe a top 10 team. They have a lot of real high-end talent, and they've just been a little overlooked. And I don't know the reason for that so much, but I do think that they are better than people think they are. And I think this weekend will tell us.
Let's turn to the CCHA. Bowling Green unranked coming into this weekend at number 17, Bemidji State. These are two teams that are going to battle with Minnesota State and Michigan Tech for the top half of the league.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think any matchup of those 4 teams you just mentioned is a pretty good one. But I think that this weekend it's early, but do you feel like in a league like the CCHA where you feel like you have a pretty definable number 1 in Minnesota State, but will there be teams that will challenge them? There are. And, is it Michigan Tech? Is it going to be, Lake Superior. Are there teams that can kind of fall out in challenge? And I think that this weekend's series, and I like Bemidji, I love the way that they played North Dakota in that series and ended up getting a win. I think that could be a good weekend to kind of plant the flag for Bemidji. And, you get the wins this weekend, and you start getting some points, accumulated in the CCHA standings. And suddenly there's a big difference being made.
I think it'll be interesting to see the contrast in styles, too, and approaches to the game. Bowling Green over the last few seasons has been known for kind of really getting the puck up the ice and getting an offense there. And you can remember back to last year's NCAAs when Bemidji was able to just shut down Wisconsin.
Certainly, and I think if Bemidji can play that shutdown game, that's to their advantage. I'm trying to really figure out where Bowling Green is. They obviously lost a lot. They weren't able to bring back some of their fifth-year guys that now sit on other rosters throughout the country, named most notably Boston College. But I think that, I think there's plenty of talent left at Bowling Green. And then Bemidji, can they kind of stick to their system and slow down a team that probably wants to play a little bit more up tempo?
Well, you can read more about these games later on this week when the USCHO Bettor's Edge column is published. Jim, you coordinate that, and it includes picks from all 10 of our Division I columnists. And I think it's a fun column to read and encourage everybody to look for that.
It's fun to write too. I'm learning more that there are places throughout this country that are starting to allow you to bet on college hockey. That was found out last week. The state of New Hampshire is one, and DraftKings set some lines. I don't know if I'm going to have their lines in this week's column because I write it on Thursday. I think the lines don't come out till Friday morning, but I'll be checking tomorrow, and if so, we'll have some reference to live actual odds that can be bet on throughout this country.
And if it's not legal where you are, then of course it's for entertainment purposes only, as are our podcasts, right? They're for entertainment purposes too.
We try.
Well, for Jim Conley, I'm Ed Trefsker, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Game of the Week podcast, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.